Before you scroll any further, understand this. This is not about intense passion or confusing love that comes and goes. This is about something quieter, rarer, and far more powerful. A love that stays. A love that understands your silence, your strength, and your hidden exhaustion, and chooses you consistently, not occasionally. Before you scroll further, pause for a moment and actually be here with this. This is not just another message passing through your feed. It carries a tone that feels like it belongs to the person who has held themselves together for too long, stayed quiet through too much, and carried emotional weight that others around them never fully noticed, never fully asked about, and never truly understood. There is someone who does not see you as something to evaluate, consume, or temporarily experience. You are not a distraction to them, not a passing curiosity, not a role you fill in their life. When they think of you, something deeper is activated. It is a quiet recognition, a sense of emotional gravity that pulls them closer without force. They feel drawn not to what you show on the surface, but to what you hold underneath it. And that presence they feel in you is what makes them want to stay close, not to take from you, but to understand you, to protect your emotional space, to soften the weight you have been carrying in silence for far too long without needing to explain it over and over again. If you have ever questioned whether a connection like that is real, then stay with this for a little longer, because what you are reading may reach a part of you that has been waiting quietly for a long time. A part that simply wants to feel acknowledged, recognized, and understood without having to prove anything. Not everyone will continue reading something like this. Most people step away when things become too reflective, too honest, too emotionally direct. But if you are still here, it already reveals something meaningful about you. It shows that there is still a part of you open enough to listen, to feel, and to notice what is happening within your own inner world. And without you even trying, something may begin to shift as you continue. The way you see your past might soften. The way you interpret your emotions might become clearer. The weight you have been carrying might not disappear, but it may start to make a different kind of sense. So stay with it gently. There is no rush here. The kind of love being described is not loud, not chaotic, and not built on emotional extremes. It does not demand attention or force validation. It does not arrive with pressure or performance. Instead, it exists in a quieter form, steady, observant, present, and when it is genuine, it has the ability to reshape how someone understands trust, safety, and emotional closeness. If you are someone who has grown tired of unstable connections, confusing relationships, or emotional experiences that left you drained, then this message is meant for that deeper part of you that still hopes for something real, something consistent, something that does not make you feel like you have to shrink, over-explain, or constantly protect your feelings. This person is not drawn to you for shallow reasons, not for appearances, not for status, not because of loneliness or emotional need. What draws them is something quieter and far more meaningful. They are drawn to your emotional depth, to the strength you carry, even when you feel like you are barely holding yourself together. They notice the things you do not speak about, the weight behind your silence, the effort it takes for you to appear okay when your internal world feels anything but okay. The way you keep moving forward, even when you are exhausted in ways you rarely admit to anyone. And instead of being pushed away by that, they feel closer. Not out of sympathy, not out of obligation, but out of respect, out of genuine care, out of a calm, emotional understanding that grows stronger the more they begin to see who you really are beneath everything you have had to become. Their feelings are not unstable or performative. They are consistent, quiet, grounded. They do not need to announce themselves to the world in order to be real. Even in silence, they remain present. Even in distance, they remain thoughtful. They notice your smile, but they also notice what your smile tries to hide. They see the moments when you go quiet for no obvious reason. They feel when your energy shifts slightly. They recognize when you say, "I'm fine." But something in your presence says otherwise, and every time they notice these things, the same thought returns to them in different forms. I want to be a safe place for this person. I want to be someone they can rest beside. I want to be someone who does not add to their weight, but helps them carry it. If something in this already feels familiar, then continue with this slowly because it goes deeper than surface emotion. When they think about a future with you, they are not imagining perfection. They are not focused on ideal moments or external appearances. They are thinking about real life, ordinary days, quiet routines, honest experiences. They think about mornings when you wake up already tired, nights when your thoughts become too heavy to silence, days where pressure builds quietly and emotional exhaustion sits beneath everything you do, even when no one else can see it. And in those imagined moments, they do not step away. They stay. They remain present in the ordinary, in the difficult, in the unseen parts of life that often go unacknowledged. They do not want to fix you, because they do not see you as something broken. That idea does not exist in the way they perceive you. Instead, what they see is someone who has endured, someone who continues to care even after disappointment, someone whose strength is not loud but deeply real. That is what pulls them in even more. They imagine building something steady with you, not rushed, not temporary, not based on emotional highs and disappearances, but something grounded in trust, patience, honesty, and emotional understanding. They want to move through life with you slowly and consistently, not trying to take over your world, but becoming a part of it in a way that feels natural, something that grows over time rather than something that burns out quickly. And perhaps the most important part of all this is simple. They do not see you as someone who needs saving. They see you as someone who has already survived so much, and that survival itself is what they respect the most. In the framework of soul archetypes, this kind of connection belongs to those who recognize depth without needing it to be explained, those who understand silence without fearing it, those who see strength not in perfection, but in persistence. And if you have ever felt unseen in your life, then understand this clearly. They do not just see what you show. They see what you carry. It is devotion, quiet, steady, and deeply intentional. A sincere desire to remain present in your life in a way that feels supportive rather than overwhelming. To make your emotional burden lighter, not only through actions you can see, but through an unspoken understanding that you are not alone in what you carry. They do not want to be a temporary comfort or a passing moment of attention. They want to become a space where you no longer feel the need to constantly guard yourself. Because in truth, what most people are searching for is not admiration, applause, or short-lived excitement that fades as quickly as it appears. What is truly needed is something deeper, to be fully seen, not selectively, not conditionally, but honestly and completely. The version of you that shows up to survive the world, yes, but also the version that is tired, the one that is healing, the one that still carries hope quietly, and the one still learning how to trust again after everything. And this person feels drawn to all of it, not just the composed version you present to others, but your entire emotional truth. That is why this kind of love feels different. It does not linger on the surface. It moves inward. It chooses depth over illusion, understanding over assumption. They are not approaching you with the intention of possession or achievement. There is no desire to treat you as something to win, display, or control. What they want is far simpler, yet far more meaningful, to care for you in a way that feels safe, to protect your softness without making you feel fragile for having it. Their love is not impulsive or careless. It is deliberate. It recognizes that trust is not immediate, that healing does not follow a schedule, that words alone mean little without consistency over time. So they choose to stay present, repeatedly, steadily, showing through their actions what they already feel within, that they are here, that they are not leaving, and that you do not have to carry everything alone anymore. And there is something important you should understand about them as well. They are not trying to take away your independence. They are not intimidated by your strength. In fact, your strength is part of what draws them closer. They see how much you have endured. They see how you still manage to care despite disappointment. They see the quiet courage it takes to remain open after being let down. That is why this connection is not about imbalance. It is about companionship, about standing beside each other rather than above or below one another. They do not want to replace your strength. They want to stand with it, to support it, to move alongside it. If you have ever been in a connection where you felt diminished, controlled, or emotionally smaller, then you already recognize how different this energy is. They notice what others often miss. While many people only respond to visible behavior, this person pays attention to what exists underneath it. The subtle shifts in your energy, the pauses in your voice, the emotions that sit between your words rather than within them. They sense when something is not right, even when you try to hide it well. And instead of demanding explanations or pushing for immediate answers, they respond with patience, with presence, with quiet reassurance that says, without pressure or demand, I am here and I am not going anywhere. That is part of what makes this kind of love feel healing. It does not only react to external behavior, it responds to your inner world. When love only engages with the surface, it becomes conditional. It thrives in ease and disappears in difficulty. But when love acknowledges what exists beneath the surface, it becomes steady, safe, consistent. It quietly communicates something simple but powerful. You matter here. Not because everything is perfect, but because you exist as you are. And if something in that feeling resonates with you, do not rush past it. Because this is often the point where people begin to understand why past connections never felt emotionally safe, why effort alone was never enough, why presence mattered more than promises. This person likely understands emotional weight as well. They know that people who have carried too much for too long do not always need solutions or advice. Sometimes they do not need fixing at all. Sometimes what they need most is space, quiet, a presence that does not interrupt their internal process. So they imagine being that kind of presence for you. Not someone who rushes to correct everything, but someone who simply stays beside you while you move through it. They imagine a relationship where emotions are not hidden away or performed, but shared honestly, where joy and difficulty coexist without fear of abandonment, where connection does not weaken in hard moments, but deepens because of them. If a part of you still hopes to be chosen not for what you provide, but for who you are, then this is the kind of future they quietly hold in mind, not chaotic, not uncertain, not filled with mixed signals or emotional confusion, but something grounded, calm, real. They think of ordinary moments as something meaningful, not because they are extraordinary, but because they are shared with intention. Morning routines without distance, small check-ins after long days, a quiet presence beside you when thoughts become too heavy, silence that does not feel uncomfortable, but safe. A life where your nervous system does not remain on alert, but gradually learns what it means to rest. Because in their vision, love is not something that constantly disappears and returns. It is something that remains, something that learns, something that adapts, something that grows through consistency. They do not only think about emotional highs, they think about everyday life. Because real love is not measured by intensity alone, it is built in the ordinary, repeated moments where someone chooses to stay present. And that says everything. Real connection does not avoid difficulty, it asks better questions. How can I be steady? How can I protect peace instead of disrupting it? How can I remain consistent enough that trust does not have to be rebuilt every day? That is the kind of future they imagine with you. Not rushed, not uncertain, but stable, loyal, calm, and still deeply emotional in its own quiet way. And if you are still here, you may already be realizing something important. Stability is not emptiness. Stability is what allows an overwhelmed heart to finally exhale. A lot of your pain did not come from one single event. It came from repetition, from being misunderstood more than once, from giving deeply and receiving inconsistently, from staying while others were unsure, from hoping to be fully chosen, only to be met with distance or confusion instead. They see that. They understand how it shaped you, how it taught you to protect yourself, to hold back parts of your heart, to expect disappointment even when you hope for something better. to remain prepared for emotional distance even when closeness is what you want most. And instead of criticizing those protective layers, they meet them with understanding. They are not asking you to become easier to love. They are asking to love you properly, with actions that align with words and consistency that dissolves doubt instead of feeding it. A love that does not leave you wondering where you stand, does not make you shrink yourself just to maintain peace, and does not keep reopening the old wound of being left behind. They want to love you in a way that gently retrains something deep within you, that closeness does not have to feel uncertain, that consistency is not a trick, and that love does not always end when it finally starts to feel safe. If something in Carl Jung's psychology is resonating here, and it feels almost too accurate in how it reflects your past relationships, stay with that awareness for a moment. Sometimes what feels intense is not imagination, it is recognition. But this kind of love is not one-sided. It also asks something of you. Not immediately, not under pressure, and not within rigid expectations. But eventually, it asks for something that can feel more vulnerable than pain itself. Your willingness to receive it. Not the polished version of you, not the hyper-independent version that carries everything alone, but the real version, the one still healing, the one that still flinches at emotional safety because it is not used to staying, the one that quietly expects love to disappear just as it begins to feel stable. Because long-term emotional pain trains a person to prepare for loss, even inside moments of connection. It teaches you to hold back, to stay guarded, to never fully exhale. But the presence being described here is not preparing to leave, it is preparing to stay, and that alone changes your entire emotional landscape. It changes how silence feels, it changes how evenings feel, it changes what it means when someone is present without needing anything from you. It changes what your nervous system learns about safety. So if part of you has spent years surviving in emotional alertness, understand this clearly. Safe love can feel unfamiliar at first, and unfamiliar does not mean wrong, it simply means new. And new is often where healing begins. Deep healing rarely happens in isolation. More often it happens inside safe connection, where you are seen without judgment, supported without control, and valued without conditions. That is the space this kind of love is trying to represent. Not a perfect fantasy, not a life without challenges, but a steady presence that remains with you through them instead of disappearing when things become inconvenient. They want to know all of you, not just the version you show the world, but the parts you keep hidden, your fears, your exhaustion, your private victories, your silence when you are overwhelmed, your softness when you finally stop pretending you are fine. And instead of pulling away from any of it, they move closer. Their love is quiet, but not fragile. It is rooted. It does not rely on constant expression to exist. It shows itself through consistency, attention, and care that repeats itself over time until it becomes trust. Simple things that carry weight when you have carried too much alone, checking in without being asked, noticing what drains you, protecting your peace when you forget to, offering help without making it feel like a burden, and making daily life feel lighter in small but meaningful ways. To someone who has been overwhelmed for a long time, these are not small gestures. They are relief. That is why this kind of love feels different. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is dependable. They are drawn to your strength, not to challenge it, but because they understand what it took to survive. They see what you have carried quietly, the things you never spoke about, the emotional weight you learned to normalize just to keep moving forward. And instead of wanting to add to that weight, they want to soften it. They want your presence with them to feel like rest, not effort. They want you to feel safe enough that your body stops preparing for emotional impact all the time. They want shared responsibility, not emotional imbalance. A life where care is mutual, not one-sided. This is not performance-based love, it is lived love. The kind that exists in ordinary days, not just meaningful moments. The kind that continues when excitement fades and reality begins. They understand that vulnerability is not weakness, it is exposure. And they treat that exposure with respect, not advantage. If a part of you reacts strongly to this, it is not something to dismiss. Sometimes your emotional system recognizes familiarity in safety before your mind can fully interpret it. They imagine marriage not as a dramatic ending or achievement, but as a shared life built through consistency. Quiet mornings, ordinary routines, emotional presence during difficult nights, a steady hand when memories resurface, a calm voice when thoughts become overwhelming, a home that does not feel tense, a relationship where silence is not distance but comfort, a life where your body does not stay in constant preparation for disappointment. They do not imagine removing your struggles. They imagine not letting you face them alone. And yes, this kind of love is rare. Not because it is impossible, but because it requires emotional maturity, patience, and the ability to choose presence over control. It requires someone who values peace more than intensity and consistency more than attention. But rarity does not make it unrealistic. It makes it meaningful. So if you have reached this point, something in you may already be recognizing a deeper truth. The kind of love you thought was too much to ask for might actually be the kind your nervous system has been searching for all along. You are not too much. You are not too complicated. You are not difficult to love. The love that fits you will not require you to perform, shrink, or constantly prove your worth. It will not rely on confusion or inconsistency. It will feel steady, grounded, and present. It will meet your strongest parts with respect and your most fragile parts with care. It will not rush your healing, but it will remain beside it. It will not erase your past, but it will stop your past from defining your future. And maybe that is what you have been waiting for. Not perfection, not intensity, not escape, but something real, something steady, something that feels like peace after too much noise. If this touched something inside you, hold on to that feeling. Not as fantasy, but as recognition that safety is not an illusion. It is possible, it is real, and somewhere, even now, there may be a presence choosing consistency, care, and the intention to stay. In the end, this is not about fantasy, idealization, or the idea that someone else will arrive to complete you. It is something far more grounded and far more human. It is the possibility of being met where you actually are. Not where you pretend to be, not where you wish you were, but where you genuinely exist, with your history, your emotional patterns, your fears, your strength that sometimes feels heavy, and your softness that you learn to hide just to get through life. Because real love is not built on intensity. It is built on consistency. It is not proven through dramatic words or emotional highs, but through repetition, presence, and the steady choice to stay even when life is ordinary and unremarkable. And that is where most people misunderstand love. They think it is supposed to feel like a spark that burns fast and bright. But the kind of love that heals is not the one that overwhelms you. It is the one that regulates you, the one that teaches your nervous system slowly that not everything good disappears and not every moment of closeness is followed by distance. It is a love that walks alongside your healing instead of rushing it, one that does not demand you be fixed before you are accepted and does not misread your silence or boundaries as rejection. Instead, it learns your language, stays patient with your pace, and makes room for the parts of you that are still learning how to trust. Because healing does not happen only when someone loves you well. It happens when you allow yourself to receive that love without turning it into suspicion. You are not unlovable in your complexity. You are not too much for consistency. You are not too heavy for care that stays. You are someone who has simply not yet experienced the kind of love that meets you with steadiness instead of uncertainty. And when that kind of love is present, whether in a person, a relationship, or even in how you begin to treat yourself, it does not feel like a shock. It feels like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. And maybe that is what this has been pointing to all along, not chasing something outside of you, but realizing you deserve a life and a love that do not require you to survive them.